welcome to another show. Today I'm talking about the New Apes Trilogy, which was the Planet of the Apes movies made in 2010s onwards from Fox when they re-established the Planet of the Apes series. The Planet of the Apes movies is a series that I was never a big fan of. I enjoyed the films, but they were so smug. The fans are so smug about how they were so socially relevant in the 60s, and they were the main sci-fi movie in the 60s. They were the thing that really justified sci-fi in the 60s, and they were so much smarter than the average sci-fi movie, and they were so socially conscious, and they were so liberal, and all of that's garbage. The movies were talking apes, shut up. I enjoyed the films. I liked the kind of depressing aspect of them, the fact that they get more and more depressed as they went on, and they blew up the world in the second film, and anything that was misanthropic about them I liked. The time travel stuff I liked, but the smugness got to my nerves. So much so that when Tim Burton made his Planet of the Apes disaster, I was laughing my head off, enjoying watching them squirm, and I kept on defending that film just to be a dick. Even though it's a mess. Because it starts with Mark Wahlberg. What worse can he be for him in the start? But it's fun to defend it just because he's been a dick. As you've probably seen in my videos, that's a common theme. I'll sometimes defend a film just to be annoying. So these films were annoying to me because they were smug, and they were, I mean, compare them to like 2001, Solaris, Dark Star. All these films are moving at the same time. THX, these films were minor. The Planet of the Apes movies. And I just assumed, okay, no one's ever going to make a Planet of the Apes movies I really enjoy, that I really adore, because that's kind of smugness that attached itself to the series just got on my nerves. And then they made a new Planet of the Apes series, which I adored. Which, well, the joke's on me, isn't it? Right, now, it was none of the most promising beginning, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, because even the first two titles seem the wrong way around. I mean, this should be called Dawn, but it's called Rise. And the second film should be called Rise, but it's called Dawn. It's annoying. But we'll ignore that. We'll get on with it. We'll ignore the fact that what they're doing is annoying. What they did in this series actually was to make a good film. Not a campy, cliched-ridden film with some odd bits of intelligence, but basically melodramas. They actually made good films here. They took the idea seriously, but didn't take it in a smug way. They actually got rid of the smugness and just said, okay, the concept is man and apes, how we're interconnected. And just went with that as a genuine melodrama rather than a smug melodrama. And that's what I really appreciated. Like, the human beings were not evil. A lot of them were just weak and stupid. And the apes were not all pure. A lot of them were pretty horrible at times. But they also weren't caricatured to be like monsters. Like the old movies, the apes were the pure heart or utter monsters. And this one, they're just apes, are just like people. There's good ones, there's bad ones. The people are just like people. There's good ones and there's bad ones. And how we're going to interact, and that's the story. So it starts off with James Franco. Never a good beginning for a film where James Franco's a lead. Because, let's face it, not an actor with a lot of range. He's better in comedies, but as a dramatic actor, kind of dodgy. He appeased the leading man, and he does a good job because he's like toned down. He's not allowed to be weird, and he's other actors around him who keep it going. And basically, his father has Alzheimer's, and he's working on a cure, but he can't get it through the system because of a experiment on an ape that went wrong to start with. Because she was a pregnant ape and she was trying to protect her baby, she thought people were attacking her, and she attacked them back and she was killed. So everyone thought the experiment went wrong when in fact it didn't. What happened was James Franco finds a baby, all the other apes are getting killed, so he takes it home with him, hoping to just take it away and find some place for it in a like animal enclosure or something. But it becomes part of the family. Him and his dad. He's looking after his dad. His dad lost Alzheimer's, played by John Lithgow. And he's just trying his best to get through this situation, to do his best for his father, to do his best for his family. And Caesar becomes part of the family, and Caesar's starting to grow quickly. And because he's a scientist, Franco starts to watch Caesar and help him develop. And slowly Caesar starts to understand that there's a world outside him and he has to actually deal with the world. And that's where the film finds its heart. Caesar dealing with the world, dealing with moral consequences, dealing with problems of what life is, how life can go wrong, how life's not perfect. Like, basically, they find a cure for Alzheimer's. Lithgow gets a bit better before he starts to degenerate again. And that whole idea of the film is that Franco can't let his father go, and that's what causes all the problems. Like, it's a human need to improve in nature that causes all the problems for human beings. But that's a schematic thing. It's much more better just seeing it all in Lithgow's face, like he's seeing his son tear him apart. And also in Caesar watches it, and then Caesar sees Lithgow start to slowly lose his mind. And Caesar starts to see how in a society he has to be taken out and put on a leash just to let people feel he's safe, even though Franco knows he's safe. Eventually, Lithgow makes a mistake, and Caesar defends him. Caesar is taken and sent to this court-ordered animal facility, and that's where Caesar starts to find other apes and see how badly they're treated. And he knows that this is just not right, and eventually he finds his power base in the group. He shows he's smart. Then he steals some of the material that made him smarter, and takes it into the animal enclosure. He finds out how to escape and takes it back, and actually makes the animals around him smarter, which leads to the rebellion, leads to the rise of these apes and them rebelling against the humans, who are cruel buggers. Now that seems very schematic, and it's one of those things in the old films that would have been. There would have been speeches about how apes and humans are different but the same, and it'd be this thing where they state the obvious and make you want to punch the screen. This doesn't do that. This actually just does it in reactions, like watching Caesar figure it out. Because Caesar's played by Andy Serkis, who played Gollum and played Kong at human motion capture. He did it again here, and he gives it enough feeling just by the eyes and how he reacts to people and how it's directed, and you just get a sense of this is an organic situation. As the human world is falling out of control, as this virus is starting to come out and get a mutation that's actually going to kill human beings, at the same time the apes are learning to survive, and the apes are learning that they should not be treated the way they have been treated. And all they really want is to escape and actually get to their into the woods and just survive as a species in the woods. That's all it's about in this first film. It's the rise of Caesar to be this humane character who leads people to survival. And that's why it works. It's a human story about an ape. And it's just something you can relate to. And it's funny thing is watching this close to Spartacus, it's essentially the same story as Spartacus, but it's done so much better because there's less speeches. There's just more acting, genuine acting, and high quality acting from the apes. The humans are cover and go, depending on who you've got. I mean, John Lithgow steals the shows a human. And it's just about this situation of these people learning to develop and become. Like, these apes learn to become something else. That they're not limited by what the humans want from them, and it's basically about their escape. It's a very simple story of a being realises his people are oppressed and helps them escape. Other stuff is going on in the background that he doesn't care about. He just wants to get them out of there. There's a great sequence at the end as they escape and as they defend themselves and they organise just to get to these trees so they can live in the trees and be their own people. That's all they want. They don't care about human beings. Human beings can do what they want. They just want to live on their own. And it makes a good point about animal preservation, letting animals be who they are, simply by the story. Don't do anything else, don't just speechify, just this is the story and you get the point. Which is what films should be doing. If you want to make a point, make it through the drama, don't make it through annoying speeches. Treat the audience with respect. And basically, one of the stories is watching Franco learn to let Caesar go and let Caesar become who he's going to become. That's the kind of emotional side of the story as well. It's also about Caesar learning to be who he is, and which could be a cliche, but isn't because of the way it's done. Now, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is a follow-up. This is the best film in the series. This is the most complicated one. This is the film that does everything the old series tried to do, but failed at. Because it takes the idea of humans versus apes and actually has them both an even keel. And it's like, okay, how are you going to survive, and what are you going to do to survive, and who's going to help and who's going to hinder, who's got their own agendas. And both sides are shown to be lacking. And both sides are shown to be violent. And it shows the idea of human nature has passed from humans to the apes. This takes 10 years after Rise, and basically is the apes have created their own little colony in the woods. They've been left alone. Meanwhile, a virus has moved through the entire humanity based on what James Franco's character did in the first one. Most humanity is wiped out. The survivors are trying to come together and create a new civilization. They need electricity in San Francisco, near where the apes live, so they're trying to get that set up. And they need to go and communicate with the apes to say, look, can you let us in here and set that up so we can go and live in the warmth and just try and survive through this upcoming winter. And even that simple thing becomes a area for distrust between apes, distrust between humans and apes, distrust between humans, different characters want different things. So on the ape side, you've got Caesar, played him out of the circus, who is trying to create a peace. Then you've got a scarred sidekick who doesn't want that. He wants, let's play with Toby Kebbell, he wants the war. He's been brutalized by human beings. He's been hunted, he's been experimented on. He has no forgiveness for human beings. He wants them destroyed. He sees them as the enemy of the apes. They'll come back and they'll take everyone out. So they have to be killed now. Just kill them now and get them over with. So you've got that pressure on that side. On the other side, you've got Jason Clarke and Gary Oldman as two people who started this colony up. And both of them are actually fairly peaceful. Gary Oldman's character is a bit more warlike compared to Jason Clarke. Jason Clarke's more intellectual. Gary Oldman's more of a guy with a military background. But both of them want peace. Neither of them want to go to war. Just like Gary Oldman, just like, I'm better prepared just in case. But let's hope we never go that far. And Jason Clarke actually is the engineer, and he goes out and tries to deal with them, create peace. And him and Caesar start to get some understanding. And they get to realise that both of them are fairly kind, and both of them have the best of people in their mind, even though some of the people aren't great. And as it goes on, you see them start to bond a little. Despite the hope, things go wrong. I mean, Caesar early on is against, follows through with what people, his own group say, we shouldn't have any interaction with them, no matter what, because the initial interaction is because of a scuffle where someone gets shot. They don't die, but they get shot. And there's obviously human beings who are hateful towards apes because of what's happened to the world, where most of the world have died, and it's called the simian flu that did it. So he comes in and the horses into the town say, look, stay away from us, we'll stay away from you. That's best. Jason Clarke then goes back to him bravely into his area and say, look, we just need this one thing, then we'll bet your way. And they create a truce. And they start to become friendly, and they start to sense something's going on, but there's always tensions between them. But both of them are working through the tensions to try and create a peace. Create something that both societies to actually live and survive. But it can't last. Koba, the scarred ape, is like, he's not going to have it. He will just plot. He just thinks if Caesar's not going to deal with these characters, these humans, he has to force a situation to protect his people. And he has a lot of hate for people and a lot of anger, and there is like a power hungry element to him as well. But it starts off mainly just not trusting the humans. I mean, if the humans didn't show up, he'd have been fine. The humans just kicked that part of his personality off, and everything followed from there. And as Gary Oldman's character is starting to getting, confronted, he starts to revert to his darker impulses too, but not the same level as Cobra. He just starts to build up the army just in case, hoping it isn't needed. And slowly the situation starts to go to war. And as once Caesar's obviously not going to create a situation where they're going to go to war, Cobra plots and has him shot and hopefully killed, and sets up the humans as being the people who did it, and that leads to war. That leads to everything. The apes going to war with the humans, and all hell breaks loose. Caesar's not dead. Jason Clarke's character rescues him and takes him and brings him back to health. And as the apes take over the city, you see the darker side of the apes, the darker side of Cobra and his minions, and how they will not accept anything but their military rule. How dark it gets. This is the worst instincts of the apes. And that's what was really great about the film. It just shows you like the idea of how you can create hell from a failed compromise, and how far it can go. It doesn't matter if it's apes or not, it's just basically people, two societies who cannot get on, and the tragedy of what happens with them. And that's what makes it really work, because everything's going through the drama, everything's going through what's happening with these people. It's not just about apes and humans, it's about humans. It's basically, the apes is a metaphor. Of course, Caesar lives, he comes back and he fights Cobra to death, which makes him have to go against his own rules, of which is apes shall not kill ape. And you see a lot of indications of where it's going. The apes are trying to build their own society, and the filmmakers, Matt Reeves directed this, and he really sets up all these things going on in the society to show a society and apes is growing. It also shows how desperate the humans are as their society is starting to fall. So you get these two different cultures going in different directions. But not everything's set yet. I mean, human beings can still bring themselves back, which is what Cobra fears. And the fear of that really drives him towards just military insanity. And it's just about the tensions, how the tensions actually create insanity within certain characters. Like Gary Oldman goes to the most extreme. Once the human settlement that he helped build collapse, and his own people are enslaved to the apes, he plans to blow the apes up while they've all congregated in this one tower. So it just becomes more, everything becomes more warlike, where people doesn't matter if that level dies, as long as the other side dies. It just becomes this horrible war that only the decent people can try and stop at cost, which basically means, like Jason Clarke's character, his whole ideal of trying to bring the humans back to something is ruined, as he has to go around with his family at the end because the society's collapsed. The apes realise they've started a war with the humans, and the humans will not forgive that because of Cobra. So they're having to go on the run. Everything's just collapsed into a war at the end of this film, which is because of no one can trust each other. It becomes this really interesting story, which again doesn't rely on actually verbalising everything. It's all about humans making mistakes, apes making mistakes, but it's all people watch each other and try to work out what this one's about and just failing to understand, for a few exceptions. And you start to see like a character like Maurice, who's Caesar's sidekick, who is trying to understand. He's the one who's most kind to humans because he doesn't see them all as bad, he just sees some of them as bad. And you see Caesar having his own small group of people he trusts, and that's who he's going to stick around with. But it's a wonderful film, the acting's terrific. Again, especially by the apes. The apes in these films are always the best part of it. The humans tend to be good, but not amazing, because they're acting against people who aren't there a lot of the time. The atmosphere of it's terrific, the sense of isolation. The whole of San Francisco looks damp and horrible. It also looks like Glasgow, basically. As if everything had rotted for a couple of years. It just has that cold, damp feel of humanity's in its last legs. It's just wonderfully done. And the apes are wonderful. Their interactions, their society is just terrific. It's just a wonderful high point of the series. Now, Matt Reeves returned to write and direct the third film in the series, War of the Planet of the Apes, which isn't as good as Dawn, but it still was very good. It's a much darker and more nihilistic film. It does feel a little bit like a retread of the first one, which is part of its problem, and is more monotonous in its pacing than the second film. The second film always seemed to be on the move from one story point to the next. It always felt it was fresh and always moving forward. The first one had that same feel. The third one, it's about tragedy and it's about the reaction to violence, and of course it becomes darker. So it's more of a slog through horror. So it's less fun. So in some ways I think it's the weakest of the three, but it's still very worthy and it's still a very good conclusion. And basically this is the point where the humans have collapsed, or are in the last stages of collapse, and there's another virus hitting them, which is a virus which makes them get dumber and lose their verbal skills. And as that happens, the people that are getting shot by the humans, because the humans are terrified what's going to happen to them. They're terrified the virus is going to come and infect them that way, and they're terrified that the virus is coming from the apes rather than something that's inside the humans already. And people are killing family members, and Woody Harrelson plays the Colonel, who's he feels himself as the last hope against the apes. And he's even disregarding his own side and fighting against them to ensure that his way will survive. So it's a war, but it's also a war between humans. But it takes the point of view of Caesar again, because Caesar's the main character. And what's happened with Caesar is, in the first battle, there's some betrayals happen, and the Colonel attacks and kills Caesar's wife and son, and the son character was a major part. His growth in the second film, from being someone who was against the humans to become a loyal member of Caesar's tribe again, was a major story arc. He grew from boy to man type of thing in that kind of story in the second film, which is a major part of the second film. The third film, he dies instantly, and the wife is killed instantly. And there's only a son left, and he's a small child. And basically, Caesar goes mad. Caesar is out for revenge. He sends his people away and says, "You go that direction. There's land over there that was found. You go there. I'm going to deal with this guy. I'm going to stop this war." Because he doesn't want to get hunted down anymore, because he's sick of being hunted by these humans. He just wants them to leave him alone. He wants to kill this guy for revenge, and he also wants to stop the humans. As he goes for revenge, he finds, in a very kind of little Josie Wales thing, he finds his loyal group coming with him to help him, and he finds that the humans are starting to get ill again with the not talking thing, and they're starting to turn against each other. And as he watches this, it doesn't stop his rage, but his rage is getting thawed a little bit, even though he can't quite be beyond it. His humanity is coming back to him, even though it's been damaged. They find this little girl who they accidentally shoot his father, because his father's scared of the apes, and now she's either be left alone, left to die, starve, or they take her with them, and they do, which is basically Maurice does it, and her presence thaws the apes out to the fact that all the humans aren't bad, it's just certain ones. And they find this monkey escaped from a zoo, who's also played by Steve Zahn. He's like a cowardly monkey, and he knows all the information, so they meet up with him, so he helps thaw Caesar out a little bit. Then eventually they find the stronghold of the humans, which where they find all the apes that from the tribe has been captured and sent there, and they've been enslaved, and they're building this fort for the humans, and they're barely getting any food or water. So of course Caesar left his people get caught. He shouldn't have left them, so now he has to deal with the fact that his mistakes caused havoc. He's caught by the humans, he faces off against Woody Harrelson. So he's caught by the humans, and he has to face off against Woody Harrelson and actually deal with the consequences of his actions. Caesar has to realise that, unlike the first two films, where he behaved in a very heroic fashion under difficult circumstances, this time this is his fault. all these things are his fault here, and he has to help his people, and he has to rediscover his link to his people to help them. He has to rediscover his people's need for him and his need to help his people to become his priority again, rather than just being about revenge. So that's a painful process he has to go through. He has to defend his people against these horrible humans and see humanity at its worst in this death camp, this concentration camp, where people are getting ground under. As they build a fort, as they get ready to face off against their own people who are coming to kill them. So it becomes this complicated story of ape hatred and human hatred, and this is the final war between them. This is whoever wins this one wins, and it becomes like a metaphor for who's going to win, what side's going to be the humane side. It becomes basically the apes become much more humane as they go through hell, and as humans start to evolve and become much more brutal, and even the people that the apes try and forgive and help turn out not to be worth it. And it turns out there's some apes who actually work with humans as well, and they're viewed as utter scumbags. And it's about, when the film becomes about Caesar's redemption, Caesar's working his way through pain to reconnect with his people and understand that his people are important, not him. But as well as understanding that he needs to deal with Woody Harrelson's character in some way. And then, of course, the way it is Woody Harrelson gets the disease at a certain point. So Caesar isn't allowed to even get his revenge on Woody Harrelson for what he's done. You know, it's too late. Like, life plays a joke on him. And his only real way through this is to actually escape with his people and get to the next stage. And because of his sins, though, he's mortally wounded, and he reaches the promised land that he thought of, but he dies when he reaches there. He's just basically, he failed basically in some ways, but he succeeded in other ways. He succeeded in important ways, but because of his transgressions, he got injured because he went after Woody Harrelson, and he pays for that. And it's sort of like the idea of the sin destroying you, but even though you couldn't really control it. It's like Caesar trying to work out his own darkness within him. So it's a nice human story, but it is a bit downbeat compared to the first two films. It needs to be that way, but it doesn't find enough variations within the story to make it less depressing. I think that's one of the reasons why it didn't do as well as other films. I think it was just this feeling of, this one is just too dark. And it's the hardest one to watch, so... But it is a very good film. But that's the Planet of the Apes series. That's the new one. And what's really cool about this series is it's evolved beyond that the need to be didactic and, again, be smug. It became a series about people, basically humanity as apes, really. Humanity learning to... I mean, the soul of humanity seemed to go into the apes at a certain point, and as they evolve, they become more human-like, and... It's about them trying to re-establish their something that's going to survive, and it becomes a story of people trying to survive through hell, and that's what the connection is to it. So instead of becoming like, oh, how apes and humans are the same but different, it becomes like, no, it's these people, these characters trying to survive, and we're going to follow them as they try and survive against oppression, against horrible, difficult circumstances, and that's. Surviving through hell is how they establish themselves, you know, not through verbalizations, but experiences. So through this story and the melodrama, that's where the importance of the story becomes. And this kind of it's very mainstream film. There's nothing new here in its sentiments. You've seen it all before in films, more intellectual, in films less intellectual. It's just well told in this one, and it's simply told. And it doesn't get into any naughty points of being smug and talking down to the audience like repeatedly. That's what's good about the film series. It becomes something beyond its original source. I'm hoping to stop now, because you don't need to do anymore. They're not going to stop. You know, it's still a successful series. And now it's at Disney, so there's going to be, because it was Fox made it, but Fox been bought by Disney, so you know there's going to be more ape films. And they'll probably lose a lot of its charms, a lot of its intellectual aspirations. But hopefully it'll have some dignity still. But this film can survive as part of this series survives as a little trilogy on its own. With the rest of the series, the different iterations, it's a trilogy on its own, and that's what it really works about. That's what we should just be happy it existed before it ultimately gets trashed again with another series of horrible sequels or something, you know. But it's a really good series from someone who doesn't like the Planet Apes series. So that's something. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back soon with some more. Bye for now.